biggest accident that I probably had was in Agram. There was crowd on the right, there was crowd on the left, and it was just a left-hander. And that's when again I forgot I was with cheek. So it sort of tucked in, and then suddenly went out. And then the minute I saw the crowd, that's when the overreaction came in, and then I had to react much more on the steering to ensure that the car doesn't get into the crowd. And then when the overreaction came in, the steering input was a lot more that was required, and that's when the front right pitched in. And it just took off. And then we had 4 front head-on rolls, followed by 2 side rolls, and I think about 5 feet from the PC. One more roll, I think we had checked.
You would have checked it.
Had the fastest time. There are only 20 seats in Formula 1. Drivers who are driving today, the skill levels that they display are extremely high. So I'm pretty sure India will have the next Formula 1 driver because India is maturing now as a country connected to motorsport.
How long do you think it might take for us to get our next Formula 1 driver?
The sport is a tough sport. If you're competing with one another, either as a driver or as a team, there is no room for any softness or there's no room for any emotion.
You know, they say there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies in motorsport, but only permanent interests.
This is something that's always spoken about, and they will have to do whatever they have to do to try and achieve that.
Welcome to Talk Room by Tonic. We are here today again with the one and only Mr. Akbar Ebrahim, and who's fondly called as Aku, and he's agreed to be a part of this particular podcast, and I must say that he needs no introduction, and I take this opportunity to welcome him. Welcome, Aku.
Thank you, Vicky.
So let's start with how did you make the foray into motorsport?
Well, I guess just like any other young lad who's interested in speed and is passionate about it. Obviously, I think it came a little bit of influence from my dad, who was always fond of fast cars and was a very good driver and used to drive some very exciting fast cars in those days, and I think it stemmed from there. Obviously, there was some inborn passion to deal with speed and deal with competition and deal with racing. So I think that came out. I think where it started from probably was the excitement that came in when my mom took the family to watch the Sholavram races, because in those days there was just like one or two entertainment shows in the whole year, and watching that was quite exciting. And I think in that day, in my mind, somewhere at the back of my mind, it was that probably one day I would come back here and race a car.
So you would say Sholavram was your first impressions that you got about the sport?
Yeah, I would think so.
And any role models, any inspiration of anyone who kind of really, okay, you had the first impressions, fine, but after that, okay, this is what I want to do. Anyone who was there to push you, who was there to guide you?
At that stage, no. When I did start racing at the age of 15, there was no role model as such, and it was just the thrill and the passion to get into a car and race on a racetrack. Subsequently, yes, but after getting to the sport, for sure, Ayrton Senna was a person that I keenly followed and watched, and was very impressed with him, and also admired him a lot, the way he went about his business. And I think subsequently after that, the person who actually taught me a lot was the late Mr. S. Karivardhan. So I would say that these are the two people that I had a lot of time for, apart from many other people who actually did, put in a lot of effort and try and support my career, even though it started pretty late when I got into serious racing. But as a standout, I would mention these two names.
Those days there was no TV, there was nothing like what we have now. So how would you keep a tab on events? Like, how would you follow an Ayrton Senna, for example?
When Ayrton Senna was towards the later part of his racing career, there was television, and that's how we were following it. Prior to that, there was no real following in terms of what's happening in international motorsport. And we were not, see, when I got into racing, into serious racing, it was probably when I was already 26 years old. So in the middle stages between racing from 15 and 16 and then playing a lot of serious cricket, during that phase it was all cricket. There was no motorsport in my mind, and there was no racing. So the following was all about cricket.
Okay. Yeah, that's the next question that I actually wanted to get into. Not many people know about your cricketing history, cricketing, whatever you've achieved in cricket. Would you tell viewers how you got into cricket, till where did you reach, and
See, cricket was something that was there because, like I said, my father was a very good university cricketer. My uncle played for the state for a game or two, and then it was there in the family. And being in school, school promoted cricket a lot. We had good opportunities to get coached by a very good coach called K.S. Kannan. So started playing for the schools right from the sub juniors, juniors, and then seniors, and the state inter-school competitions, which was very, very intense and very good. The levels were quite high, and then to be able to represent the school and then captain the school in junior and the senior and win tournaments for Don Bosco, where I studied, set the platform for me to take cricket very seriously. So that's where it all started, from school, and the competition with good teams from other good schools was quite an experience. So I think from there onwards, the journey started, and then playing for Loyola College in the inter-college competition, which was also quite very well recognized in those days. Being able to captain Loyola and win the Bertram Shield, which is a very prestigious tournament to win. Thereon went on to captain the universities, the Tamil Nadu University, and in the inter-university tournament. At that stage, I was already representing the city and state under 19. I think from there it went to Tamil Nadu under 22, South Zone under 22, and then it was Tamil Nadu under 25, and then finally played for the state in Ranji Trophy, and then also in the one days in the Subayapula. So I did also play quite a bit of professional cricket in UK. I played 2 years for a club called Ilford Cricket Club in the Essex League.
wow?
And it so happened that Steve Waugh from Australia and me played together for the same club for 2 years.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and it was quite an exciting 3-month stint or a 4-month stint, which was off-season for us here. He was sponsored by Kerry Packer in those days. Well, he went on to play for Australia after that, but I didn't continue to play for India, so that's another story anyway.
What happened?
Not really much. In those days, the exposure levels were not as high as it is today. You have today, performance certainly matters, where people get to know about it. In those days, it was a closed loop system. And dealing with a closed loop system, it's very easy for people who they want to be there and who they don't want not to be there, and nobody would ever know about it. But today that doesn't happen because everyone knows what's going on and everyone's performance is well monitored, and it's a lot more transparent these days. So I guess I would leave it at that and not dwell beyond that. But certainly I do know, as well as people whom I've been closely associated, including all the seniors, including people like Mr. G.R. Vishnath, Mr. M.L. Jaishma, Mr. Sunil Gavaskar, Mr. Sandeep Patel, whom I played with. Well, they all felt that I should have gone a long way, but let's say it wasn't meant to happen.
Okay. And that's when the switch to motorsport happened.
Yeah. I think when I stopped playing Ranji Trophy, which was after 86, then I got married after that, and when I was still playing competitive cricket for 2 years in the First Division League, I played the First Division League after that for a long, long time. But for the 2 years after that, it was still there that you can come back. But then
Which was that team?
I played in the First Division. I played for Madras Cricket Club. I've been born and brought up in that club. It's a very historic club, which is 175 years old. It basically was the mecca of cricket as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned. And played all the B team games, A team games, which helped a lot in my career to do well in all the state matches. So to continue to play for the club was a great honor, and captain the club for about 8-9 years was also a great honor because it's got a lot of history and a lot of great players have played for the Madras State Club, going down from the, probably from the late 1800s. At that point in time, I met Vicky in Kodaikanal when we went for a holiday with my wife, and he was with his wife, and then we were having a get together, and then he spoke to me about the concept of the single-seater Formula Maruti, and which is what Mr. Karivardhan was going to be building, and that interested me a lot, and we kept in touch ever since. And then I met up with Kari, and then we had a demo drive, and I was sold out, and I confirmed that I would go ahead and buy a car and get back into racing.
Wonderful. So which was your first event?
Well, my first race was in Sholavram when I was 15 years old, when I literally would say just nicked my dad's Fiat 128. It was an Italian Fiat 128, which was 1800 cc. Just went to a local mechanic and did some modification on the exhaust just to make it sound like a racing car and make it sound loud. In them days, they had the classifications, which was 1600 cc and above was the open category. And yeah, there were no rules and regulations. It was just like how in the olden days where how motorsport was across the world. It was, it was just everyone with a lot of enthusiasm and passion would take part. It's not. It was never professional in those days. So,
yes.
So all cars, be it single-seater cars or tin tops, anything above 1600 cc, were all compiled together, and it was all one grid. And we had cars like the Formula 5000 of Maharaj Kumar of Gondal, we had Maharaj Kumar of Burdwan, we had Karivardhan, we had Vicky Chandok, we had Kamlesh Patel. We had the whole list of names who were all on the grid. I think there were probably about 40 odd cars who started that race. And these were all the big, powerful Formula cars of different types. It was a 50-lap race. Those days it was the Grand Prix. It was a 50-lap race. And after about 4 laps itself, I started getting lapped by these big monsters. And then again, after about 8-9 laps, and suddenly I realized I was getting lapped a lot less by that many cars. And there were fewer cars that were going past me. And I still remember having Sheriff Dhyan there, still standing on that next to the hay bale and trying to guide me and give me a line through a corner. But I guess after about 25 laps, I saw nobody lapping me. And then after about 30 odd laps, the crowd started shouting, saying, "Get inside." And then I realized I was the only car on the track. Because everybody had broken down. So, and, well, I finished the race. I had to. They couldn't stop the race. It's quite an experience, and it happened to be my first race and my first Grand Prix win, and that was the Chief Minister's trophy, which I received from the Chief Minister after that.
Wow!
So that's how it started. It was just fun, getting out of school, getting a license, which was quite an experience in to get it. But that's how it started. So 2 years later, for 2 years I raced in the A1A after that, the Fiat A1A, which was a very competitive class in Sholavram, which was basically Indian sedans, which you can do modifications using Indian components. So it had a lot of the engineering aspect, the tuners aspect involvement. But we had a lot of competition. It was probably the most competitive class for about close to 40 cars from all over the country. Enjoyed it. Finished in the top 3 on both occasions that I raced. It was a local person called R. Chalapan, whom I remember, who tuned my car. He was a specialized mechanic in air conditioning, but also very passionate in two-wheeler racing, and he used to handle Sheriff Dhyan's and Hasmat Sharif, two well-known riders in those days from the state of Tamil Nadu, and he handled my car, which was fantastic because a person from a local workshop here competing against the big names who were preparing cars from Bombay, Coimbatore, was quite a satisfying experience. Yeah, so that was 2 years, and then when I wanted to continue, and then my dad just told me, listen, is fun, but get on with something that you're serious about, which is cricket. And there ended the Sholaram experience.
At the age of 15?
Yeah, 16, I think. 15
16.
and 16.
Okay.
Till I got back in the last race of Sholaram when the Formula Maruti was brought into play. That was in 1988. And that's when I took part, and that was the last race that Sholaram hosted.
Okay. Okay. There was rallying those days also. Was the name Sholavaram, did it influence you to take up racing rather than rallying initially?
I guess that was the first experience. So it's like, well, your first date is always remembered, right? So,
Yeah.
so I guess that was the first impression, and that's what sort of sunk in. Had I not been exposed to Sholaram and gone and seen a rally and witnessed the rally, that might have been the route that I may have taken. So I think it started from. But everyone is born with some amount of ingrained into the system, and then
Yes.
that itself will take you in a direction that you have. And I guess for me it was the wheel-to-wheel competition, it was the intensity, and it was the speed, and also the thrill of pushing it to the limit, but being able to keep it within the black stuff and not go beyond it, which means it's like, when you say it's freedom, freedom also has a definition. It's just not that you can go and jump off a terrace. The thrill is to be able to go as far as you can in your own limits, your own ability, and the ability of the vehicle, and the dynamics of the circuit, and then still keep it within that and not go off. It is very easy to go off.
Yeah.
So, anyone can put up a sense of bravado, or, people talk about guts, or people talk about, fearlessness, which I don't accept. There is always a fear in a professional racing driver.
Yeah.
Guts, yes, you have to be very, very strong in your mind, and you have to like it. If you don't like it, you would never be able to give 100%. If you're doing it because someone is forcing you to do it, then you're always 90%.
Yeah.
So I think that was the thrill, to be able to go as far as, push as much as you can, but not going beyond the limit.
So, what did you face once you came back? I mean, from after cricket, when you came back into motorsport, what was the initial hardships, roadblocks to seriously start racing? Finances, or, I mean, you said your dad initially said, get back to cricket, but how did it come back to motorsport again?
Yeah, like I said, see, when I realized that in cricket, well, like I said, I enjoyed my professional stint in the UK. I also enjoyed a tour to the West Indies where all the potential Indian cricketers toured that. It was a 2-month tour, and that's when I met Robin Singh, and so that's when he came down to India, and I hosted him for a couple of years, and he set himself up. So all these experiences were great experiences, and the zid was still there to play for the country. But when you give it and try for another 2 years, top the league, top the runs, and you don't get opportunities, and that's when you say, okay, now I need to. I didn't want to look at something else. I got into work. My family business was into manufacturing, into trading. But when this came up, it sort of just came up, as something was going out, something else comes in, and then it was already something that I had done.
Yeah.
It was something that I was passionate about. So that's how it came up. Yes, I could afford, not me, my family could afford to buy the car for me to get into racing, could support the budgets for, whatever it costed to race the Formula Maruti or the single-seater in the club races as well as the national races that were conducted all after the last race in Sholaram. The what's called now the Madras International Circuit was at that time the Madras Motorsports Club racetrack, which came up, and the first inaugural race was in '89, and that's where the journey started in terms of club level racing and national level racing. So the difficulties per se, like everyone does have difficulties. Degree of difficulties may vary. In any sport, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be roadblocks, there are going to be speed breakers, there are going to be huge mental barriers that you'll have to deal with, multiple disappointments, and also the not so nice side of it, where people try to block you, and that comes with any sport, not just with motorsport, and that comes across the world, not just in India. So I'm not going to try and sort of balance Indian culture versus European culture, or an American culture, or an African culture. In sport, in any type of sport, these things happen.
Yeah.
So if you're a professional sportsman, you've got to learn how to deal with it,
Yes.
and not crib about it. That's the biggest problem most sports people have. Who learns that early enough is able to move up further up, and who's not able to understand that and tries to fight it all the time is going to constantly keep fighting that system, and which is what happens to most of us.
There's a huge resistance.
Yeah, it just takes some good soul who has a lot of wisdom and is able to see through that, and then associate with you, and you being able to respect that person's wisdom, can learn from it early enough, and then you sort of break that barrier. So yes, there were challenges, huge challenges. I guess when I started, it was there was no one to tell you what to do, how to do it. Today is so different, where you have data analyzers, driver coaches, engineers,
Yeah.
and you have the whole thing. But at that time, you have to understand it for yourself. Yeah. Then came the seniors, and obviously, the first year of racing was Vicky handled the whole program for me and put in a lot of time and work with me. So he helped a lot, which was good because he was already experienced. He was racing for quite some time. And then the real thrust in terms of learning came when I got associated with Lakshmi Mills under the mentorship of Kari Vardhan. So that was the real teaching, and he was a great teacher, a very selfless person, and was probably the first professional driver in the Lakshmi Mills family. It was always the family members, and from Coimbatore, he supported so many drivers, but like I was probably the first person from outside Coimbatore. And that's when, after going through the stint of the Formula Marti, the McDowell 1000, and then finally, when he gave me an opportunity to drive the Formula 3 in India, was a great opportunity. And that's when the serious racing started. I would say, till then, financially, whatever it costed to race in India was managed by my parents. I had no stress on that front. But later on, that's when I realized the stresses that come from the financial side to support your ambition, to support your goals, to support your passion is it's quite stressful.
Absolutely. So you were the first international driver from India to drive for the F2. I mean, you went into the F2, right? So how was that journey from India to F2 internationally?
Yeah, it was quite a journey because, like I said, after doing 2 years or 3 years of Formula 3 in India and competing with a lot of very, very good drivers from UK and from Belgium and from across the world and from New Zealand and Australia, because the Indian Formula 3 was very intense. I mean, it was probably the most exciting championship that any driver could get the opportunity to race in, because it was the rivalries between the two big tyre manufacturers, between MRF and JK Tyres.
Yes.
And before JK Tyres came into the sport, it was Lakshmi Mills, basically. So it was a Lakshmi Mills team, and it was the MRF racing team. The intensity was as high. And but when JK Tyres associated with Lakshmi Mills, when in fact, I still remember the day when Gautam Singhania called me and said that his cousin would like to meet Mr. S. Karivardhan for a discussion to see a possible association between JK Tyres and Lakshmi Mills. And when I spoke to Kari, he's fondly called as Kari, so I spoke to him and I said, listen, that they won't have a meeting. And he said, yeah, please bring them over. And I fixed up and I flew down to Coimbatore, and that's when I first met Vikram Singania from JK. And they had a discussion and they came to an agreement that then they would do a joint promotion to support both racing and rallying. Because I think at that time, the passion from JK was a lot about rallying also.
Yes.
And that's when it started. So the intensity in those races with both tire manufacturers, then bringing in all sorts of qualifying, one-lap qualifiers, short race, soft compound tires, and then the main race, medium compound tires. It got into a lot of technology, bringing top drivers from across the globe to ensure that they win. And then in that created an opportunity for people like us to get the exposure to be able to compete against very, very experienced drivers who come through the ranks from karting, through Formula Ford, and then on to Formula 3, and who are all young and all trying to make a career for themselves and trying to get into Formula 1. And that was the level of drivers we got the experience to race against. So rather than complaining that they had so much more opportunities and blah blah blah, I would look at it is that the man gave me that opportunity, and it was phenomenal. Then you weigh yourself against professionals, and then suddenly when you start putting it on pole and you start coming on the podium against such qualified drivers, well, it tells you something that you've also got something to talk about. I think from there I decided, okay, this is not enough. I mean, the story doesn't end with this. You can win 5 national championships, you can talk about it, multiple national champion. Today everybody says he's a 10-time national champion. I don't understand how they say that, but I guess they calculate that when they were racing kid karts and they're racing junior karts and they add all that and say I'm a 10-time national champion. Well, keeping that aside, for me there was something more. So I wanted to go and race internationally. And I think the first thing then that came up, the opportunity was the Formula Asia.
Formula Asia, okay.
And this gentleman called Jung In Fa, who was Alex Jung's father. Alex Jung drove for Formula 1 and he was the first Malaysian to do so. And his father, just like how Karivardan built the Formula Maruti, he tied up with David Sears and introduced a formula called Formula Asia, which was with the Ford engine, but with the aerodynamics, and I would say very similar to a Formula Ford 2000, and with a proper Hewland, H pattern racing gearbox. So it was a proper racing car.
Okay.
But it was much lower in terms of spec compared to the Formula 3 that I had already raced in India.
Okay.
But this was again international racing,
International.
and it was racing against Asians and Europeans, etc. And it was all about Malaysia, Indonesia, racing in all Asian countries. That's where the international episode started from, and I did quite well. I was on the podium regularly. Missed out on a couple of DNFs and not being able to win the championship, but certainly being right up there. And then that was Asia. Then I wanted to race in Europe. I said, but by the time I was already getting to be close to 30, right? So when I went to England and started racing, literally I was being called uncle, or, So, but that didn't deter me because end of the day, what was in my head was I wanted to race.
Yes.
And I wanted to race at a high level, and I enjoyed it. As long as I could find the funding to support it, but it was getting to be more and more difficult. Certainly the type of funding that was required as you get higher up the ladder in international motorsport was not something that my family business could afford.
Okay.
And I was already into business myself, well into it, probably 5 years into the business and sort of doing my own stuff apart from the family business. But it was very difficult. But at that point, I did have the good support from Indian sponsors, namely one stage was, first it started with Lakshmi Mills, of course, and then it started with JK Tires, long stint with them, had a very good stint with MRF, and Some support came in from, well, definitely from a company, the BP or the television company. They supported me for a couple of years. And UB also supported me for a few years. So bits and pieces from everywhere, but not enough to do a sustained full season.
Full season, okay.
And I was also not at that stage, not in a level where at being 30 odd years, you can't give up what you're doing here and park yourself in UK and try to be a professional racing driver, which you normally do when you're 16, 17.
Yeah.
So it was then very clear that I'm going to be racing for a certain period of time and then come back. Or I used to fly back to India and then fly back sometimes when there was a slightly bigger gap, because I had my own work to handle. So it was a balance. It was never, so in that, when I first raced in Formula Asia, probably I was the first Indian to race with an international license.
Okay.
But from there I moved to Formula Ford, which was a very, very competitive class of racing, which is without wings. But that teaches you a lot in terms of single-seater racing. So I did the Brands Hatch Festival of Speed. I did the Brands Formula Ford Championship. Not all the races. And from there, I graduated to race in the British Formula 3. But I found it more and more difficult because the fitness level was definitely not where it should have been in comparison to the competition. Because the lifestyles were different. And the age was also 30 plus by the time. So it's trying to, like I said, balancing between passion, ability was there because you're still doing consistently well.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, one more level that I would like to experience. And then I got an opportunity from Alan Howell, who was an engineer who engineered me here in India. And also I had people like Trevor Carlin and Anthony Hyatt, which I fondly call him as Boyo, one of the best engineers I've ever seen in my career. And a very nice person who put this package together, and I was able to do some testing and the Formula 2, the British Formula 2, which is a 650 bhp car, very similar to, in terms of power, very similar to what we have in today's FIA Formula 2. So that was the experience, but you can't continue. It's just far too expensive. And when I raced, I think I learned the lesson when I raced in Formula 3 itself. When I was racing for Alan Docking, a good Australian guy. And when I told him, listen, Alan, for this race, I need about 2 weeks to, put this money down because there's a little bit of delay in getting it. And he said, no problem, mate. The car's yours, but there's no steering wheel on it. So I said, okay, that's it. And then I took the flight and came back home.
Who were some of the names you recall while you raced Formula 2? Some famous names, anybody?
Honestly, I can't recall because it was, there were a couple of very good Brazilian drivers, very good British drivers, and but I really don't recall the names. But in Formula 3, yes, raced with a lot of good drivers, Warren Hughes, Russell Ingall, the guys from New Zealand, Mark Goosen from Belgium, who was that time a Formula 1 test driver. So these are the names that I recall when I was racing. In UK, yes, there were people like Rubens Barrichello and Mika Salo and Mika Hakkinen who were all testing in Formula Ford.
Wow.
But we never raced with each other. But I've seen them on the same circuits when we were testing. But beyond that, no.
What was your best win while racing?
I think the best win was certainly in the Formula 3 in India on my debut Formula 3 race. And that was for the specific reason when Curry gave me that opportunity. And he said, okay, I just want you to find your way around. It's like coming from a Formula Maruti, which is a 3-cylinder engine, and putting out something like 50 bhp into a 180 bhp car with proper aero, and a Formula 3 is a car that goes through corners at a very high speed.
Okay.
It doesn't rev that much. The limit comes in at about 6,200 to 6,400 RPM, but it's so well engineered that the cornering speeds are extremely high.
Mm-hmm.
So he gave me a car which was an 87 model,
Okay.
and it had a VW Spice engine with the carburetor. And the competition was all 90 and 91 Dallara, as well as other makes of Formula 3 chassis with the Toyota fuel injected or the Honda Mugen fuel injected engines.
Okay.
So there is no way you could, in today's world, you could even think that a carbureted engine would match up to a fuel injected. Fully tuned spec Formula 3 engine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And for me, it didn't make a difference. I mean, for me, just the thrill of the excitement of getting someone to give me a free drive in a Formula 3 car and allow me to race was enough.
Was enough, yes.
It was more than enough. And I didn't even think for a single second that someone else had a Mugen and someone else had a factory-made Tom's Toyota engine with the updated chassis. So it was the current year's chassis that they were racing. And I think in qualifying, I put it on P2 or P3.
Mm-hmm.
But I got a good start and I won the race. So for me, that was the best ever race because it just, in all the years of training that I've done after that for young kids and give back to the sport, it's a thing that is very, very important, that you can't just keep looking at the level of equipment all the time. And that to be able to beat everyone and win a race with equipment that was so much superior to what I had was probably the best race for me in my life.
Okay. Your stint in rallying, how did you get into rallying?
Very entertaining, I would say. And I think with rallying, that saying of a cat has 9 lives was defeated. I think I got into rallying again, spending time with Curry in Coimbatore, because I used to go there quite often and be with him. We went up to the hills, I think it was in Ooty, and there was the South Indian rally that was going on. So we went up there in the night and we were watching, and then I heard the note of these cars, the gypsies. Most of them were gypsies in those days.
Yeah.
And they were Group A. Group A means that you could do the works in terms of tuning and preparation. And the exhaust note and the induction of the Weber carburetor, when I could hear those cars coming down the hill, down the mountain, and look, and I said, that sort of got me. I told Curry, listen, I need to do one rally. I just need to do something like this.
Okay.
This is really exciting. It was tarmac, of course. And rallying those days was, so it was a big book, and not all the roads were closed, and they would run them in the night so that there was hardly any traffic, but you would have oncoming traffic coming occasionally. And that was another part of the whole thrill. So he said, fine, then do you have a gypsy with you? And I said, yeah, luckily I had one which belonged to the house, the spare house car. And he said, okay, send it across, I'll make one, I'll prepare it for you. That's how it started. Wow. And, he prepared it. Didn't charge me anything, he just got it done. And so we did the first, in Kodaikanal was the first South India rally that I did. It was a great experience. I've never driven a gypsy before, competitively.
Yes.
The dynamics were totally different after coming. This was the year after I came back from England after racing Formula 2. So, you would say you're red hot as a single-seater driver. You're sharp, and you're driving a car of 650 plus horsepower, right? And your reactions are so, everything is that much at such a high level.
At the peak.
And then getting into this Jeep and not understanding the dynamics and going up. This is before the rally even started. We were just driving up to go and register and do the check-in. And I nearly flipped it. And I just didn't understand what was going on. I said, this can't happen. I mean, I'm just taking this corner at 50 kilometers or 60 kilometers into a hairpin, and it's just not possible. And then I had to reorient myself and understand that this is a Jeep, and it's not a single-seater racing car. and you have to drive it very, very differently. The whole center of gravity is completely different. The wheelbase is different. But yeah, we got into the rally and it was good. For the first rally, the car was really good. We were up by about 2.5 minutes, is what as I told, and then coming down in one guard section, the clutch went because it wasn't a racing clutch, it was a normal clutch. And then we couldn't finish the rally.
Okay.
It was a great experience. So then once you have a good experience as a human being, you
Obviously.
stop, you don't, right? So you get more sucked into it.
Yes.
And then, so I did more rallies on my own first with my own vehicle, had some success, but it was very difficult. And then I got pulled into for a year with the JK rally team.
The JKs, I remember.
So that was a full year of rallying that I did. It was difficult to get a navigator to sit with me because, yeah, we had some great experiences in the way we went off and went off the mountain a few times. The biggest accident that I probably had was in Agram in the first Triple S.
K1000 rally.
K1000.
I remember that. I'd seen that.
Yeah. So it was in the Gypsy, and it was basically tuned to such an extent that, you know, it's the first time the Gypsy had a fuel injection system.
Okay.
Probably doing, yeah, so we were graded as grade C because we are not, you know, been rallying before. So I remember when Hari had finished his stint and he came back and we were all parked and waiting for a turn to come. And he said, yeah, gave me a brief description of the whole layout and he said, last corner, left-hand flat.
That was your co-driver?
No, Hari Singh was
Okay.
also rallying another car.
Correct,
So
correct.
I had Jaikumar from Coimbatore who was an experienced navigator. And so when somehow I didn't hear, he said flat. What I recall, the last corner, medium left, flat. And we finished this whole, and we were doing really well through the whole Triple S. And then came down, a bit of a long straight. And that's when again I forgot I was in a Jeep, right? So, and when you're doing 100, just doing about 170 Ks down the straight, it was amazing for a Gypsy to do that speed in those days. There was crowd on the right, there was crowd on the left, and it was just a left-hander.
Yes.
But, you know, when you become a professional driver, you get trained to get into a zone, and nothing else matters. And then when you're in that zone, all I could see was the tarmac and the corner going left. And for me, the angle of the corner was certainly flat. I was in fourth. And the word that Hari mentioned also, last corner left-hander flat, but what he meant was third gear flat, not fourth gear flat. And yeah, I just kept it and I just turned in. It was flat, and it was fourth. But yeah, but then it was a Gypsy, it was not a car.
Yeah.
It was a Jeep. So it sort of tucked in and then suddenly went out. And then the minute I saw the crowd, that's when the overreaction came in, and then I had to react much more on the steering to, you know, to ensure that the car doesn't get into the crowd. And then when the overreaction came in, and the steering input was a lot more that was required, and that's when the front right pitched in.
Pitched. Okay.
And it just took off. And then we had 4 front head-on rolls, followed by 2 side rolls, and I think about 5 feet from the TC. One more roll, I think if you had checked
You would have checked
still
in.
had the fastest time.
Well, nothing happened though.
No, nothing happened to me, just some small bruises on the leg, but the car was built so well. Navigator, I don't know how he got out of the car. Yeah, he had fractured his left shoulder,
Okay.
but that was it.
I remember the roof was almost close to the bonnet, right?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, it fully caved in, but it was like I said, the build was really good. It was built by Curry. The roll cage was the one that's basically saved us. You know.
Yeah. So that you would consider as your most iconic crash in rallying?
That one, and certainly another one which was also quite hilarious, where we had Jagdish Bhatia from Chennai, an old seasoned navigator, and we were doing the popular rally, and this time it was not in a Gypsy, it was in a Suzuki, an S-Team, what we call.
S-Team. Mm-hmm.
But a Group A spec, so really quick for a rally car.
Yeah.
We actually, after 4 stages, were leading that rally by miles because the car was quick. It's not just that I was the best driver, no chance. The car was really good. So, and it was a tarmac rally, and for me, tarmac was that much more easier because I'm used to it. And doing about 180 Ks, the speed was fully locked, and it's just a long straight, and it is twilight. I do remember my dad used to always tell me that when driving on the highway, you need to watch out for twilight because that's the time the vision will be neither here nor there.
Not there, yeah.
It was exactly at the time, it was a light drizzle. And the navigators had this big book, the tulip book.
Tulips, right?
So,
Yeah.
and then no call, and suddenly I see no road left. And we just went through the tea bush. Actually, it was a medium right, no call. And then suddenly we get through the bush, and then you get the stomach coming up. You have the sinking feeling, and the car starts pitching down. And there's nothing, we're just floating in the air, and then going down. And as you're going down, the stomach comes more and more, and the navigator says, "Mar gaya." And then again he says, "Mar gaya." And then it's never ending, and then suddenly we whack. Our luck was that it was a soft riverbed, very soft, so the car was able to get into it and not explode.
Wow.
So, yeah,
A scary one.
that was a scary one, yeah.
What about racing? Have you had incidents like
I've
this?
had incidents in racing, few crashes into the barriers, whiplash, never had an injury. I did have a serious crash in the Formula 2 car when I was testing in Donington. It was the old hairpin, which is a flat fourth gear after that, very quick, probably 240 Ks, and then we lost it. And that's when you realize the speed. And it's a very short runoff, and I hit it really hard. Bad whiplash, bruises on the shin, but in racing I never had any other injury other than that.
Okay, so the next section we call it as the mixed bag. And in that we start with friendships in motorsports. You know, they say there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies in motorsport, but only permanent interests. What has been your experience with that?
Well, by and large, that's a saying that's been there for a long time. Like motorsport has many abbreviations or many narrations, and this is something that's always spoken about. But I somehow don't accept that in toto. While you have experiences which fits the bill in what you just said, it's not by and large the same with end of the day it's the person that you connect with. The sport is a tough sport. If you're competing with one another, either as a driver or as a team, it's certainly a tough sport. There's no inch given from any side. That's the way you look at it, and then you develop a healthy respect to your competition. But if you don't look at it in the correct way, then the feeling of being let down or having disagreements will always come into play. To give you a better example, I think cricket is a better example to give it to such a question. There is a boundary line, and when you enter that boundary line, you fight tooth and nail for what you're there for, right? It is a lot of aggression. There is a lot of, when you're into the sport and you're into a game or you're into a race, it's 200%. There is no give. There is no room for any softness, or there's no room for any emotion in the sense that, okay, I know someone and therefore, you sort of back off a bit or you consider certain factors. No, you give it everything. The thing is, once you leave that boundary line, when the session is over or when the game is over, you walk out into the dressing room, and whatever transpired inside that boundary line stays within that boundary line, and it doesn't get carried over beyond that line. If one can understand that, then it's easier to deal with these situations. So the question that you ask is a very realistic question. The phrase that you use certainly exists, but once you're able to understand the deeper meaning of hard competition and going at each other and leaving that as to where the competition is, you will be able to see the insides of people who can be quite different to what the perception of the, 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 the association or a friend. When you get friendly with someone and you start trusting someone, and then you have common grounds to talk about, and there are colleagues, there is affinity, there are associations, and then there is a deeper friendship also. The deeper friends, that means you get along with each other, you have some common grounds, the trust factor comes in, and that remains. I mean, as long as you can deal with it in the way that I've explained it. If you don't understand that, then it would be very difficult in motorsport to have a true friend, because everyone has an aspiration, everyone has an ambition, and they will have to do whatever they have to do to try and achieve that. There are no shortcomings there. It's in the way you do it and the way you qualify what you're doing, I guess, will leave a mark on the table for your relationships that will come down the line.
Okay, so our sport is a very, what do I say, there are not many viewers, watchers, or even the fraternity is not so much. So do you think this kind of rivalry continues once we move into the admin bit of the sport?
Yeah, it certainly does. From an on-track rivalry, and if both parties concerned are basically getting into the administration in what everyone says, giving back to the sport, right?
Yeah.
I would qualify that with an exclamation mark. You certainly give back to the sport in as much as you can, but I don't see anyone sitting there and doing charity. Unless you're in that position financially or in all other aspects, that this is not your mainstream and this is something that you contribute as a volunteer or as an honorary position to give back to the sport, or to, it's not really about giving back to the sport really, it is also, when you get into administration, it's a function, it's a job that you're doing, even though it's not professional, even though you may not be earning from it, but you still have to do a job which is a job needs to be well done. And when you have to do a job properly, you have to function like a professional. You can't function like someone who would come in as an advisor and sit for a meeting or two over the course of the year and give some inputs. Mm-hmm. That's completely different. So when you get into administration from being a competitor, it does have its strengths for sure, because there's no way everyone is going to see eye to eye on the same subject. There is no way everyone's going to have the same opinion on the way it needs to be dealt with and the way it needs to be construed. The approaches are going to be very different. The end of the day, one thing has to be clear, that the end result should be the same. How you reach that point is how each one goes about it. But if the end result is different in each one's mind, then to be able to function cohesively in an administrative role is very difficult.
How did you make your choice to get into the karting discipline of motorsport?
Yeah, so it stems from, when I raced and when I was racing internationally and against drivers who were, let's say, 10, 15 years younger to me, and then I saw the experience levels that they had when they've come through the sport of karting. And already at the age of 16, 17, they were able to deal with situations in terms of understanding of a chassis setup, understanding in terms of power, understanding delivery of power, at what point, depending on the circuit configuration, what sort of delivery of power is needed when, at the bottom end side of it, or on the mid side of it, or on the top end side of it. So they're able to relate to top speed. They're able to relate to going through the gears in the powertrain. They're able to understand, because in karting you have different combinations and configurations on your your engine setup, your sprocketing, your gear ratios, which is in a racing car, it's basically you deal with your ratios on the gears that you have depending on the layout of the circuit. And the driver then works with the engineer and talks about having to have a shorter third or a longer third or a shorter fourth or a longer fourth, and then fifth, sixth is more towards top speed. So depending on the radius of the corner and how long he has to be in that gear, or whether he hits the limiter and then he's on the limiter through the corner, and then you work with the engineer and you try to get the ideal gear ratio set up through the gears to be able to give you a comfortable and balanced car to drive through the corners. So karting is very similar. So you don't have gears, you have sprockets with a chain, and you have your front sprocket and your rear sprocket, and then you adjust your ratios depending on the length of the circuit, depending on the corner radius. So these drivers had so much of experience to be able to understand chassis dynamics, to understand tires. Tires is probably the most important component that comes into play in a racing car. And if a driver is unable to understand how the tire functions, what is the threshold on the grip level of the tire, when does the tire give, how to get the temperature into the tire, how to get make sure that he's got the right tire pressures and balance it between the front and the rear end of the car. All this is learnt from the sport of karting. And at the age of 26, 27, we didn't know anything. And when we were racing here also earlier, the engineers knew what they were doing because they were all international engineers and teams, but the education process from the team to the driver was not there, like what you will get in karting. Because when you race a race car, you're expected anyway to know a large amount of all this information. A race engineer is not going to be sitting there and do a tutorial session to you to take you through the basics, right? And that's what I saw the big gap. And I said, if this is going to be the gap for Indian drivers, then God help them. Because they're never going to be able to compete on a level playing field with drivers racing in international championships, because they're all coming from the pedigree of karting. And that's when I said, no, this is what we need to bring to this country. Not the rental karting, which was already existent in India. There were competitions and championships being held with the basic rental karts, with the low-powered four-stroke engines, which are basically the recreational generator engines. But that doesn't really teach you anything. It's just fun karting. But that's the way you start. And then that's when we said we need to bring professional karting into India. And I tied up with the firm in Malaysia and got some financial support. And then we brought down probably 20, 25 karts. One was with the entry-level Yamaha 100cc engines, and the other was with the Rotax 125cc engines. We did an extensive training program in Bangalore, which is a very nice karting track that existed at that time. And we did a sort of a shootout, an evaluation for the drivers, and there was a scholarship given to compete in Malaysia for a year. And that's when the program stuck, and the interest level from all the aspiring young Indian drivers got the exposure to drive in sophisticated products like the professional karts. And we started the championship in 2004. So the reason why I brought that level of karting to India was primarily, I knew what I went through and I saw the gaps. And I said, okay, I've gone through it, learned it the hard way. The learning curve took so much more longer, right? And by the time you go through that learning curve, you're already done with the season. It's too late. But whereas if you go through all this learning at the young age of 12, 13, or even when they start from 8 years old, and as the mind slowly develops and matures, which effectively starts taking place only at the age of 12 or 13, when they really start to understand the science of it, then you're in such a better place. And that was the sole reason. And then from there it went from place to place. And then from a point of view to do something for the Indian drivers, then it became a championship, and, it became a commercial entity, it became a business. But without, till today, I still involve myself in the core activity that I started, which is the academy. And that was my passion to teach and train, which reflected in one's personality. Because if you look at it, when I compare it as to why, of course, there were situations which necessitated me to get into motorsport also from a commercial side, because we had a family separation in the family business, and that didn't go too well, and things didn't, warranted that I do something outside of, the manufacturing and trading side. But the core, when I relate to it as to why was I connected with training, I was training drivers on a one-on-one basis, then that became into a academy. When I look at it, it's the same thing happened in cricket. Like I did mention to you that, I don't know, probably it was inbuilt that I was also trying to help other people grow. And if at that time when you have the opportunity and the wherewithal to help someone, I believe you should do it without expecting anything in return. The fact is that when I played professional cricket in England, I used to stay with Nasser Hussein's parents in Ilford, in their house. In fact, his father used to work for my family company, and he was the works manager for the factory before they migrated to England. So we've known them from that time. So I had a place to stay. And likewise, when Nasser came down to India when he was a 15-year-old, when his dad spoke to me and sent him down, and he stayed in my house, stayed in my own room, and he played under me in the club, and he came here as a leg spinner, and I said, no, you're going nowhere with that, because it was a different action. And it's those days, like, in England, the thought process was that if you could be a good spinner, it's very easy then to, get many wickets, because people were not very accustomed to playing top class spin bowling.
Spin bowling, okay.
But then when I saw him bat in the nets, and I said, no, this is not what you need to do. You need to start, becoming a number 3 batsman. And he stopped bowling and he focused on his batting. He got certain amount of runs in year 1, but in year 2, when he came back, he got a lot of runs. And we supported him. It's like you don't drop someone just because they don't get you runs all the time. He went back and he played for the Essex League. He played for the county second 11, then he played for the Essex County, and then he played for England in a matter of 5 or 6 years after his stint. Similar situation happened with Robin Singh when I was playing in West Indies. We were all billeted. We were staying in his uncle's house. Vivek Jaishama from Hyderabad and myself were roommates. His uncle was a senior vice president, I think, in a beer factory called Carrot. And that was also quite interesting, because when Robin was playing, we played against Trinidad, the main countryside, the team. And Robin was an all-rounder. We used to meet up. We had some good competitive matches against each other. And then one day a conversation came up about, his future. I don't know for what reason I said that, listen, you're from Trinidad. You're not at all buzzing, out and out fast bowler. Coming from Jamaica, coming from Barbados, because Trinidad was more of the Alvin Kalicharan, Rohan Kanayam, more of the batting and the spin bowlers, but not so much from a fast bowler's point of view. Now it's changed. Okay? I don't know for what reason, but it somehow came out that I said, you'll be a good all-rounder, but if it's tough, he was mentioning it's not so easy to break through. I said, why don't you come and do a stint in India and play in different conditions? I don't know what prompted me to say that, but it got picked up from there, and then it got serious. And I said, my parents spoke to me, and they said, no, but you see, we can't afford it, which is normally the case for any most talented
somebody traveling,
travel, staying costs, where does he stay? Who funds it? I don't know, for whatever reason I said, okay, for year 1 I will support it, because we got talking to each other, we liked each other, and I was getting runs, he was doing well. So when I came back, I hadn't spoken to my parents about it. Yeah, we had 2 spare rooms we had a fairly large house at that time. And I came back and then they asked me, called me from there and said, listen, we have to make a decision. Are you serious about what you said? I said, yeah, just give me a day. And I spoke to my mom and dad and I said, listen, I don't know, I've made this commitment, which is probably wrong and I shouldn't have made it without speaking to you first. But having said that, this is what I've done. They didn't waste any time over it. They said, listen, if you've given your word to someone, we will ensure that you uphold your word and we will support it.
Lovely.
And, they called the next day and I said, yeah, it's done. We will take care of him for 1 year and then we'll see how it goes, but I can't give you more guarantees apart from that. It ended up that he came in a month's time and yeah, he stayed at home for about 3 to 4 years and made his way, worked hard.
Wow.
And made a success story for himself. So I'm explaining that. So somewhere there's been a connect in this training association with people whom you're competing with also.
Yeah.
Robin and me were on opposite sides all the time. He played under me for MCC, but then he played for Jolly Rovers as a professional after that. And MCC and Jolly Rovers, which is Kemplas, we always used to have some phenomenal tight games in the First Division League. So it was very hectic, like I said, within the boundary line. There was no, in the evening he would stay in my same room, but believe me, we've had some massive clashes.
Not an inch given nor taken.
On that field, yeah. I mean, when he used to bowl bounces at me, and I never used to wear a helmet for whatever reason, because I believe that, you should have the ability to, and those days, helmets had just come into the system.
Okay.
But it was tough, it was hard. We had some not physical, but serious verbal altercations. The funny part is at the end of the day, he had to come home after that. And then you had to look at each other in the eye and then you had to get on with it. So that sort of thing came across and that's how I took to training drivers when I felt that the whole thing is to cut short the learning curve, and if somebody can help you and like
yes.
how in my days when I was racing here and how Curry did a lot of training for me and that sort of cut short my learning curve so much. So you do need a mentor like that. You do need someone to teach you the ropes, right? And that helps you in so many ways. So that I still do in terms of the karting championship. I was a founder and it's now being run professionally. I have a great team, great guys. They run the company, but I'm very much involved in the training aspect of it, and the core of it. So. Coming back to your question, karting, if karting didn't come to India at this level, and it's taken us we started in 2004, so it's 21 years
Wow.
of running this championship selflessly and successfully. The grids were small in the beginning.
Yes.
We never made money out of it as a promoting company or as an organizer. We did get support from sponsors after that, which helped us stabilize. But again, there's long periods of time that we did not have any sponsors for the championship and we still kept it going. And you absorb the losses because it's important and the sport is going to grow. Problem is we had lack of infrastructure with just one track in those days. So the sport was not growing across the country. It was more south-centric. And slowly, only now, a little more infrastructure is coming.
Okay.
So it's just like, why is cricket so big? Why is football so big or hockey so big? You have access. You can get onto a field and go and play. You don't have a racetrack in every nook and corner of the country to get into a go-kart and start racing. So it's difficult. Parents have to travel with young kids. India is geographically a large country. The demographics are very different compared to many countries.
Yes.
India is like a continent by itself, not just a country. So to expect people to travel, stay off for 4 days, hotels, it's all, it gets quite expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But we stuck it out, and from having 10 or 15 people on the grid today, it's very, very. It's a nostalgic moment to notice. Now we got about 75 drivers in an event, which is probably the largest grid that an Asian event has as a national event, not as an Asian event. So when you look at a core national event, which is a Malaysian event or Singapore or Thailand, the core drivers from that country certainly don't come anywhere close to what the grid we have today,
Okay.
which is very satisfying. Now, if you look at the performance levels of drivers who have gone through this karting program and the success that they've achieved in terms of skill and ability, when they've got the opportunities not only to race in India but then to move on and race in various levels, you know, now we have the structure which is Formula 4, Formula Regional, Formula 3, Formula 2, and then Formula 1. And in earlier days, the structure was different. It was Formula, Formula Barth, Formula Renault. We had GP3, then GP2. There were different types of championships. But wherever the Indian drivers have gone and raced, they have done quite well.
Okay.
And a large number of drivers have raced internationally at certain levels.
Yeah.
The fact is that they were not able to get the right financial support to ensure that they have a very programmed and structured pathway, and to do what their competition is doing is why they couldn't sustain. But people who have gone and done, they have done an excellent job, and actually that has all come from the base that they got in being able to have the experience and do 2-3 years of karting and then move on to racing.
Okay. So, who all have been your Nasir Hussains and Robin Singhs in karting?
Well, I don't want to mention names because there are so many of them.
Okay.
So it would be unfair just to pick on a few names, but I think everyone has sort of been associated with me from the training part of it. And I used to run the team on my own then, and then also work with the other teams. I made sure that we set up other teams and got other teams to come into the championship, so it doesn't become monopolistic. Yeah, there are several drivers that we have personally gone out of the way to, ensure that they sustain in the sport per se, because you have drivers who come from a very wealthy background, and then you have drivers who come from a not wealthy background at all, but who are still parents get very passionate about it.
Yes.
And they try to find ways and means of trying to sustain. When you do see talent, it's obvious that you try and help in the best way you can, in terms of equipment or in terms of, saying, okay, fine, you take an extended payment sort of situation, or you even run a few drivers at no cost basis, because you try and support till they find a break somewhere. So there are many, and I don't want to mention names because simply saying, when there are so many drivers that with every driver I've had a good association. Every young kid, it's exciting to see these young kids, the way they go about the business and the way they talk. So there's a lot more education now coming in from the parents' side. So the conversations are so much more interesting when you deal and you talk to a 11-12-year-old kid. In those days, you would never find a 12-year-old kid expressing himself the way they do now. It's like a 7-8 year generation gap. What we were probably expressing when we were probably 19 or 20, a 12-year-old is doing that.
12-year-old is doing that. Okay.
It's just not the sport in any form of life. It's genetics. I mean, it's basically every next generation is that much more advanced. So I'd like to say that I enjoyed the associations with the kids, done whatever we could do. Everything doesn't have to be financial support. It's also a lot of time that you can spend with people. It's the mental support, the confidence that you give people. Because motorsport is probably, I played a lot of sport. I was once asked to write an article after I'd come out of professional cricket and professional racing. And they asked me, a well-reputed paper asked me to write an article and do a comparison, column to column, between cricket and racing. I agreed to do that, and I started writing that, and after the 4th paragraph, I stopped. And I called the editor and I said, I can't do it. I said, why? I said, no. What's happening here now is, as I'm writing it down, I'm just embarrassing cricket. So I don't want to do that. Cricket is totally different.
Yeah.
The game itself is so different, but motorsport is so hard and so tough. Physically, yes, for sure. If you're not at the peak on a fitness level, you just won't survive. You just be giving excuses. But the fact is that your performance levels will just get worse and worse. But it's also the mental side.
Okay.
More on the mental side. To be able to look at yourself in the mirror, self-analyze, and then accept it, and see your strengths, see your weaknesses, and then try to work on the weaker points and try to hang in there. And at the same time, the pressure is on the financial side because, like I told you, when I told the guy in UK, when I said, I need time to pay, and he just said, the car's there and there's no steering wheel. And that's how brutal the sport is. So, because the other guy who's supplying the equipment, he's got bills to pay.
Yeah.
You've got to pay the track for the track charges, you've got to buy the tires, you've got to maintain the engine, you've got to buy fuel, you've got to buy oil, so everything is a cost. So it's not like, there is something there, then you switch on a computer and you plug and play. So
Yeah.
you touch a go-kart, or you touch a racing car, you touch a rally car, the minute you touch it, you open the door, there is a cost to it.
There is a cost to it, yes.
So who pays that? Someone has to pay it. And then, so it's tough. So to handle all that, and then get in there and be in that zone and then do what you have to do to the best of your ability is not easy. It's a very tough, it will kill you. There are many, many nights that we have sat alone and cried and sobbed. I remember in UK when I was racing, I was already into business. Like I said, I was already 28, 29 years old. I was married. Sitting and living with a family that serves me dinner at 6 o'clock in the evening and then lights off at 7:15, it was just incomprehensible. You can take it for 3 days or 4 days, but then you just go berserk in your head.
Yeah.
I was not a 15-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Then, okay, the team will take you to the pub probably once or twice in a week, but this is it. There's no car, there's nothing. And then how do you deal with it?
Okay.
So, but you had to. And
Yeah.
England in those days, in the early part of the season, was very gloomy. So it was not like you had sunshine. So you would have to deal with rain and cold and wind shear and just handle it. You have to, just give you an example. So it's not easy. So mentally, it's very, very tough. The physiological side is extremely, extremely important. The connect from the parents to the child is extremely important. We have a huge situation globally where the parents are too ambitious and put too much of pressure on the kid.
Yes.
That shows up in the later stages.
We do notice that even in India now.
A lot. Little by little it's changing. We managed to explain to parents that it's not about, everyone is, whether it's tennis or it's motorsport or it's cricket, like, I put in so much money, I'm funding it, I'm sacrificing so many things, and, sometimes they just lose it and blast the kids in terms of the performance levels.
Yes.
And it's something that you should never ever try and bring into the child's mind about what you're doing. What you're doing is what you're doing because you want to do it for your child, but you don't have
Correct.
to let the child know that. You need to be the support factor for the child and not the aggressor to the child. So I had a lot of dealings and good experiences with dealing with parents. At one point in time, I probably thought I should even set up, becoming a professional in getting into psychiatry and getting into dealing with stress levels of people. And I've gone through enough stress and I've gone through the worst points of my life. And experiences does count. So it was interesting dealing with the parents also and trying to advise them on how they need to conduct themselves. Because they play a big part in the development of the young
kid.
driver.
Yeah.
And if that is not correct, or if the interaction with a mechanic for a 12-year-old or 11-year-old is not correct, or the engineer, it's a cohesive system. Nothing works in isolation.
Yes.
For a complete package, it's everything that's involved. So it's the parents, it's the team, it's the school, it's the friends. Everything has to, work in a particular manner.
Okay.
To be able to get the best out of the product.
Okay. So you've seen the evolution of karting over here in India. So how long do you think it might take, leaving the financial aspect aside, for us to get our next Formula One driver?
I mean,
since karting being the base from where you start?
So you always dare to dream, right?
Yeah.
And yes, there is the old saying that where there's a will, there's a way, right? Certainly, I would use that as a base denominator. But where there's a will, there's a way doesn't mean to say that the final way is Formula One.
Okay.
Because if you have to look at it mathematically and very, very maturely and constructively, there are only 20 seats in Formula One.
Yes.
And there are probably more than 500,000 drivers across the world aspiring to get into Formula One.
Okay.
When you look at karting as an industry, we are looking at something like we have more than 50,000 to 70,000 go-karts being sold every year
Wow.
across the globe.
Okay.
So which means you have about 50,000, 70,000 drivers who
Yeah.
get into karting at the age of 8 and then go on till 14 and then get into racing. So karting is so big because its volume is across the whole world. And then from there it filters down and you come into Formula 4. So you have probably 5 or 6 Formula 4 championships. On an average 20 to 24 cars in each championship. So then you're talking about 120 to 140 or 150 drivers.
That's a huge.
You see, it just closes in.
Yeah.
And then from Formula 4, you go to Formula Regional, which is again another 3 or 4 championships that are running, probably 100 seats. And then you come to Formula 3, which is 30 seats. And you come to Formula 2, which is basically, again, 20 seats.
20. Yeah.
And Formula 1 is 20 seats. So, while all that passion is there, and you're never going to give up, you have to give the dream, you have to believe that one day you will be a Formula 1 driver. Right? Which is how today everyone who's competing at a high level in Formula 1 have all gone through that and stuck to it.
Yeah.
But then they've also had the right type of backing at the right time. And if that for some reason is not forthcoming, there's no point in then thinking that I'll still get to it.
Okay.
You have to work, you have to keep trying. You can't give up, but you have to be practical, and you have to have a target line set that this happens within these timelines. I keep moving in this direction, but if it's nowhere close to this happening within that sort of timeline, then I need to start having alternate pathways. Not getting out of the sport while staying in the sport, but I need to be practical. So, coming to your question that will India have another Formula 1 driver, I truly think so. I just think that, we have the talent. Drivers who are driving today, the skill levels that they display are extremely high. Commitment levels have to increase quite a bit on a broader scale. There are a smaller section of drivers who have all these factors. Larger section of drivers have to still understand what commitment is all about. Discipline, the fitness side of it, the mental training side of it. Yes, you have multiple coaches today. Parents are giving almost everything.
Yes.
But you have to be sensible. Do you need everything so soon? It's very easy to say, okay, now you need a fitness coach. Yeah. You need a physiological coach. Yes. You need a nutritionist. Yes. You need a driver coach. Yes. How many more coaches and teachers are you going to give?
Yeah.
First, let him come up the hard way.
Yeah.
Let him prove that he can sustain. Let him get his hands dirty. Let him learn how to change a wheel or a tire in a go-kart first.
How good are they with their technical knowledge, the kids?
I think quite a lot of kids are very, very savvy on this. Those who listen, learn. Those who finish the session, remove the helmet and then go down to the hospitality area or to the tent and then start chit-chatting or start complaining about the equipment, are never going to learn. So you can see that, the intensity. There are drivers who would stay with their cart and want to know and interact with the engineer, interact with the team principal, interact with the driver coach. And the more questions, you can see that guy is going somewhere.
Yeah.
And the others who will just finish off, come back in time for the next race. So they are not going to learn anything.
Yes.
They may be talented.
Yes.
But talent alone is not going to sustain. It's a combination, like I said, it's cohesive, it's a complete package. So So I'm pretty sure India will have the next Formula One driver because India is maturing now as a country connected to motorsport.
Okay.
In our days, at least, and when my own son was racing, when I was doing the job of trying to source sponsorships, and even though he raced at a very high level, he never ever had the opportunity to do a complete full season with everything that was required for him to perform to the ability that he had. So this is a parental experience, and I knew, and I couldn't give him what he needed. But so you take the gullies and you take the lanes and you still survive and sustain and you reach one point, right? It's very difficult at that time for people to connect when you're saying that you need support, you need sponsorships. And other than a few companies, there was no involvement. It was all, and it still is, it's only about cricket. Yeah. So what is the ROI? It's, when they talk commercially, it's very difficult to justify. There is no ROI that, you had to have. See, India is still not a motoring country.
Culturally.
I think talent-wise, ability-wise, skill-wise, we definitely have talent which is right up there that can qualify to state that yes, we will is capable enough to getting into Formula One. But like I said, just skill alone and talent alone is not sufficient. Everything, it has to be a complete package, and not just to get into Formula One. It's to do well in Formula One.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Getting into Formula One and just basically stating is it's fine. It's an achievement. Like again, it's a huge achievement. But if you have that passion and you say, I want to get into Formula One, you want to do well in Formula One and you want to sustain in Formula One, right? Otherwise, the whole journey seems to be a waste.
Yeah.
Right? So, to do that with that aspiration level for a youngster and the parents, the team, there has to be a complete structure around and keep putting milestones, keep putting targets, KPIs is what we call, to see where you stand, where you're going. Because if you're not going in that particular path, there's only, you start karting at the age of 8, 9, and then you probably will kart up to the age of 14 or 15. And then, so it's basically 7 years. So, in 7 years, in the mini category, going into the junior category, which starts at the age of 12, and then going to the senior category, which starts at the age of 14. So, 12 and 13, 2 years in the juniors, 14 and 15, 2 years in the seniors, is you have to have some KPIs as to where you stand. Because from there, if you're going to get into Formula 4, right, you need to know that, you have a reasonable level of success in what you've already done. Right? It doesn't mean that you can't be a good Formula 4 driver unless you're a karter. No. You get straight into that. But this shortens the learning curve a lot.
Okay.
But if you don't have those KPIs and you're not going to be up there, where are you going? You may have all the skill, you may not have the money and the support to do the right championship, to do the right amount of testing, to be with the right team. It all has to work. You have all the money and don't have the skill, it's still not going to work.
Yeah.
You have all the money, you have all the skill, and you don't have the commitment and the discipline, it's not going to work.
Not going to work.
So all this has to work cohesively. Now, if today the country has started to accept, yes, there are people who are now willing to invest in talent and not looking at it purely from an ROI point of view in terms of, okay, because the arguments and the discussions, not arguments, the discussions I've had with brand managers, sponsorship managers, marketing heads, okay, if I put my sticker on this back, this is my viewership in terms of television, blah, 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 and if I'm paying the cricketer 25 lakhs or 50 lakhs, this is what I'm getting.
Correct.
For 50 lakhs, what can you give me?
Yes.
Put it, nothing. Nothing. What is a driver going to give him at that age?
Correct.
Racing in a championship with 5,000 or 2,000 people watching the event, or probably 10,000 or 15,000 people on a viewership in a, on a telecast. So that doesn't work anymore.
Yes.
Today, certain people who are connected with the sport in some way, who are primarily connected with the automobile or the automobile industry, say, okay, there is a contribution we should make to investing in talent. That's how you're going to get support. The days are gone trying to make a sales pitch to people saying, okay, this is what I'll put the patch here, and I'll put the patch here, and I'll put the logo there, and I'll put the sticker here.
It's gone.
It's gone. It doesn't. That conversation won't go beyond 5-10 seconds.
Yes.
Right? So it's pointless having such a conversation also, because that patch means nothing. It's the endorsement. And people today are looking at investing into someone's career. And obviously then comes a financial return. So as a startup, as an investor, and if I invest into an individual, which is quite common these days, and I do have a contract that 10% of his earnings will come, then people have to look at those sort of mature sort of backings, because if you want to reach Formula One, you have to go through, let's say, the general curve is going through 4 to 5 years minimum of karting at your national and international level, which is going to cost you a certain amount of money. And then you're going to look at Formula 4, maybe 1 year or 2 years, which today, depending on an arrive and drive championship or an inter-team championship, ranges between 250 or 200,000 euros to 500,000 to 600,000 euros.
Wow.
Formula 4 was never meant to be this expensive. The FIA introduced it with a basic thought process that it should be controlled within 150 to 160,000 euros. But that, when it comes to inter-team competition and then the parents' involvement and the private testing, and they all take control of this.
Are there no price caps? Like,
I mean, Formula 4, your car that you race, you can only test that much.
okay.
But not everyone will go and test a very similar car.
All right.
But even with the testing that they're doing, which is quite high, the budgets are around 500 to 600,000. In an Italian championship or in a Spanish championship, right? So that's the sort of budgets that are going on today. And then you do well in Formula 4, you're going to go to Formula Regional. Again, you're talking anywhere between 300,000, 500,000 to 600,000. Then you're talking about Formula 3. If you do get a seat in those 30 seats, you're talking about 800,000. And then you talk about Formula 2, you're talking about 1.5 million minimum. Now you look at that sort of funding that is required. So you have to have that support system also. Right? What happens today is that just because you don't have the money, you can't and you should not say, I'm going to give it up. Because you do have scouts, you do have talent scouts who are watching talented drivers in recognized championships internationally. And then that's how you have the feeder system now. You have the young driver program for all Formula One teams, Ferrari, McLaren, Williams, Mercedes, Renault. They all have their young driver development programs, and Red Bull. So you could get into that. But you have to be there to be able to give yourself a chance to be looked at and to be able to get into it. For that, you have to invest. There is an investment required.
Yes.
That you can't say the minute I touch a go-kart, I'm going to get sponsored. No. So you have to find a way, a very structured way in how to, if you see that there is talent, and apart from talent, there is willingness, there is commitment, there is dedication, and this is a product that is worthwhile pushing, and try to find a structure that can support the product to somewhere there, and with that result up to there, and then you hope that then the next level comes and picks up this product and then takes him or her further.
Okay.
And so in that manner, if you can approach it and you tick all the boxes, why not? I certainly believe India will not only have a Formula One driver, but a very well-performing Formula One driver.
That's good to know. Yeah. Well, that was pretty exhaustive, Aku. Now let's move on to the next part that we call as the admin, your admin stint. What made you move into the administration part of the sport with the FMSCI?
Yeah. So the admin side came after the being a competitor. Then the admin came in from being a team owner.
Yeah.
From being a driver coach, from being an organizer for events.
Promoter.
So that's all, and a promoter. That's all part of admin. Admin kicks in a lot there.
Yes.
Then comes that's commercial admin, and then comes in governance. So it's very different.
Yes.
Governance is completely different from promotion, or as an entrepreneur, promotion of events, right? Because a promoter is passionate for the sport, otherwise he will not become a promoter.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, is also commercially oriented. When you get into governance, it's completely different, right? At least in what I would qualify or state as what should be the correct way or what should be the right way. many an organization and many people get into governance for the wrong reasons. And few get into governance for the right reasons. So now, leaving that aside as to motives and ethics, understanding definition of governance is very important. Is here a regulator, right? So if you look at a club is not so much as a regulator. A club is there to organize events and run motorsport events because you like it, you're passionate about it, you have volunteers, you have groups of shareholders or members from a club who all contribute to running an event because you like doing so. And you also have to find the financials to make sure the event is sustainable, and then the club earns some money out of it. The club is completely different from a federation. A federation is about regulation, it's governance. It's governing the sport, right? It's a governing body of the sport. So I never thought about, that when I got into the federation, I never really thought at that time that I wanted to become the president of the federation. No, not for a single second. I got into the federation first in the commission as the racing commission chairman based on my experience in racing in India as well as internationally. So as a commission to contribute towards the discipline of racing.
Under whose presidency, do you remember?
I think 6-8 years when I first got in, and the commission was only 12 or 14 years back. I think Kashu was
okay.
there, but I still
It's okay.
recall the exact president at that point in time. So I served as the racing commission chairman for a couple of years. Truck racing, I was involved with two-wheeler racing. I was never in a rally commission. I was only in the racing part of it from a commission's perspective. And then from there, I got involved in being the rep for the Asia Pacific from the FIA side. So this sort of handling commissions and rules, sporting regulations, dealing with technical regulations, dealing with the technical commission, dealing with the teams, dealing with the various aspects. We were able to bring some structure into what was required in terms of what we knew what was happening there and how it should happen here. So there is some sync, and then we are not going in one direction and the rest of the world is going in the other direction. All that was interesting. So you didn't have to spend that much amount of time. And suddenly from there, you realize, okay, now I've already been here 6 years, 8 years, I've done my bits in different aspects. Because if you want to become a president of a federation, there are some people who make it up in the head from day one and it's a good aspiration.
Yeah.
To aspire to be a president of a sporting federation is a huge, it's a huge task and it's a huge achievement. But you have to have an all-round experience. You can't come as a person with individual expertise and expect to be able to do a good job in overall governance of the sport at large.
Sport at large. Okay.
So when I say the sport at large, you're dealing with so many different disciplines, right? So you're dealing in terms of four-wheelers and two-wheelers and karting. And under the umbrella of four-wheelers, you're talking about off-road or on-track circuit. And under off-road, there are so many different disciplines, two-wheeler and four-wheeler. So you have to have a fair bit of knowledge of all these disciplines, and you will get that knowledge unless you first put in time there in commissions.
Yeah.
If you come in straight as a figurehead, it's fine. The name is a brand or someone comes in and sits there and conducts a meeting, that's fine. But if you're going to get hands-on, and then you need to know, you need to have experience. So with that amount of experience dealing with two-wheelers, dealing with four-wheelers, when an opening came, having been there and then you're senior enough in that position, because not everybody likes to do this work.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not something that you can say is, you can, go home every day after a good day's work and, say I had a good day today.
More brickbats than bouquets.
in governance and in regulatories, there is no, you don't going there and saying that, I had a really good day. So it was an automatic process. I never ever said that when I'm going to get into the FMSA, I want to become the president. Never. By serving as the commission and various commissions and also serving internationally, representing the federation, it became an automatic process that when there was a time and there was an opening and then people had said that you should come in as the president, and then I accepted. It is not something that I fought for, right? Obviously, we have a system where there is an election.
Yes.
And the first year I stood for the council, I did not win because I believe that you still had to come in as a councillor first. And subsequently, that's how I changed the constitution. Because earlier you could go straight and become a president. You didn't have to be a councillor. So you gain experience and again as a councillor. So it was the second year when I stood that I won, and then I was a councillor for a couple of years, and also handling the commissions. So then from a governance point of view, from a board point of view, from a director's point of view, how do you deal with these situations? It gives you experience, and that experience then allows you to be the overall head. Because if you don't have that experience, then trying to be the overall head with pulls and countermeasures and everything tugging in different directions, it would be very difficult to control and keep a federation running in a healthy manner. It could very easily break down and collapse. So that's how it came. So to answer it in a nutshell, I never got into the federation with an aspiration to be the president. I got into the federation to work and give back. See, that is where I say giving back, which is non-commercial. Contributing to the development of the sport, contributing to a better structure, exposing the country to other countries. And by doing that, it was a process that automatically happened. Then you served, and then now people feel you're qualified enough to become the president, and you take on that responsibility.
Okay. So in the 6 years that you were the president, which term would you consider to be your best?
I think in terms of ease of doing business, as what we would say, the last term was fairly less toxic and less stressful. The first term was also good because you're new, and then there were new things, and we were able to push, and people are a little more tolerant and saying, okay, there are new ideas, somebody wants to do something, and you had a little bit more support. But then halfway through, it started getting tough in terms of having to handle different viewpoints and personalities and thought processes.
Halfway through the first term.
Yeah. Second term was a very difficult term because end of the day, if you have to carry out bold resolutions or you take bold steps and implement, you do need the support of the council. And in a council of 10, if you don't have at least 5 or 6 who are in line or aligned to your way of thinking and support you, you're just going to get blocked on even the smallest and tiniest of things. That comes from an egoistic point of view, I would say. Without any rational, without any, healthy debate as to why, it's just a question of no. And that was a tough 2 years, but yeah, so a lot of work was done in those 2 years, mind you, but it's just a question of, you having to always trying to deal with that, manage it. It was unwarranted and unnecessary. End of the day, we still achieved what we wanted to achieve, but we could have achieved it in a much less stressful environment. The last 2 years was no problem. There was a good council, there was always a support, and you'll never have 10 on 10 because even though 10 people are, like the 9 others are all good friends of yours who appreciate you, everyone has their different views, everyone has an opinion, and everyone, sometimes I agree to disagree, or both opinions don't have to be the same. and then someone says, no, sorry, I don't want to vote for this, it's fine. It's good. You know, it's the viewpoint that you need to respect. You can't take it as a personal slight that, you know, someone has opposed me and not gone, unless, like when the opposing comes without any rationale and just to block, then that's a different category that we are talking about.
Yes.
Then that's politics, right?
Correct.
But debates, opinions, views, and if I say sorry, but I still don't accept your view, and I'm saying that I abstain from this, then is not playing politics, is me giving my viewpoint. But by and large, how a federation works is that we will argue and we will debate or whatever it is, but if the consensus is there that we move in this direction, you need to be broad-minded. When you want to open up the sport, you need to open it up, right? When you can't run an administration or a federation. You know, it's like trying to, what we call, which exists even today, the old boys club.
That's a word I hear very often.
Yes, it happens world over, not just India, in many different segments. So we still have this old boys club. The appointments, the assignments that are given to people is again within a very close group. Officials' appointments, which
Yes.
we are working very hard to, from the FI level, not from the Indian level, to broad base this and open things up, because we recognize these things. All of us, the current FIA president is probably the most qualified person to lead the FIA, because he has been the president of his ASN, both in the four-wheelers and in the two-wheelers, for a long period of time. So he has handled the ASN. He knows what clubs are all about. So he knows how it happens. Now, so to answer your point on the governance side, yeah, so the last 2 years was fairly good. I quite enjoyed it. I didn't have the requirement to go and, you know, take blood pressure tablets or probably have a stent. That happened in the first term. Yeah, but by and all, you know, you could have, there is so much more that could have been done. There's so much more that I know I could have done.
I'll come to that.
Which in some ways, you know, personally, if my goalposts were here, I wouldn't say that had done 8 on 10 of my own ability to do. But we've done a certain amount.
Okay. So that also answers my second question, which was your toughest term, or the term which was most controversial, for example. Now, Formula One came into India for 3 years, and during your term, MotoGP came into India. How did MotoGP come in, and then how come it dropped out immediately after? It was announced for 2 years, but then both the years it was taken away.
See, when MotoGP came, we were not the ASN, the federation is not the promoter, so we had no idea of what was done between Dorna, the promoting company, the FIM, and the local promoter. And then as they approached us and spoke to us, then we got to know a little more of how the whole structure was done. And so you then had the local, the UP government, and then you had the circuit. So, and finally the ASN, which is the governing body that takes on the rights to run the event.
Yes.
Which is the way it needs to be done. By engaging the right professionals to do it. So, I think it really happened because there was support and the want to have an international event like MotoGP came. I think it all happened because there was involvement and support from the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Mr. Yogi Adityanath. So I could see in the discussions, I never met him, We never had interactions with his secretariat, but while talking to the local promoters and talking to the MotoGP promoters, we could see that there was a hand, right, there from the CM who made sure that all these small obstacles were being removed to ensure that it happened. But what I keep telling people is not just MotoGP, is when you get into such high, big ticket events, right, you need to look at all angles in depth in what all your contractual obligations are. Mm-hmm. Because it's business, it's hardcore business. Right? It's not so simple that you sit and have a cup of coffee across the table and say, okay, it's going to cost me 25 million euros and that's it. So I need to get my 25 million euros and the event runs. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. No big event works that way because there's going to be add-ons and add-ons and add-ons based on gaps and based on issues and everything that will get gap that is there. If you don't have the local wherewithal to cover that gap is going to come from there. And that gap is not going to cost you 100 rupees, it's cost 100x.
100x.
So it all multiplies. Right? So then structuring of the agreement itself. People should think more deeper in how to structure the correct agreement in line with your existing tax system, in line with your existing income tax system, in line with your service tax in those days and currently GST. So you have to have a bigger exposure on all these matters, which sometimes was not taken so importantly. So it's very easy to then sign an agreement and then get into trouble later. So that's the first thing I advise people. Don't take it lightly. And then if you have to modify your agreement to suit your condition, it's like you live, when you're in Rome, you do what the Romans do. You don't come here and then you say, no, you do it my way. No, you change your contract and you adjust your contract to suit what our country is, how our country is structured. You don't make me sign a contract to how you're structured. Because then I face the music here.
Yeah.
I'm saying not I'm talking about the local promoter. So the promoter must be strong enough to ensure that it's two ways, that the agreements are structured in such a way that the sport or the event is well protected. It's well enshrined, right, by the law of the land. It's well enshrined and fits into your taxation system in the way you structure it. You structure it or you word it wrongly, then you go into another bracket. And then you scratch your head. And then you get huge amounts coming your way which you can't handle.
Okay.
So once and you should know what, if you say, okay, for example, if the local promoter said, okay, MotoGP is going to cost me 20 million euros and that's it. And I'll put in 5 million and I'll source the balance 15 million. So it's like I'm starting up, I'll find that money and it's not going to happen. You will not sustain.
It's not.
And if you want to see, this is a long-term thing. It's not a short-term thing. If you're getting into such big investments, right, you're not going to make money in year one as a promoter.
Yes.
You have to be there for 3 years, 4 years, and then over a period of time, right, if it's a successful property, you start enlarging your base, and that's when all your additional revenues come in. If you haven't got the wherewithal to sustain it for 3 years, why even get into it? So you pop in and pop out. And that's exactly what happened. They could not find, and if you expecting the government to take over everything, was not happening. And why would they? They did do a lot for it to happen. I understand that the government also financially supported the whole project quite a bit, which is something which is phenomenal. It has to be appreciated. But the sustainability was never looked at. And if you don't have that sort of resources to sustain it, at least for a minimum 3 to 4 years, then why get into it? Don't try and get into something at this level on hope, and don't try and take a gamble on it, because it'll just be a disaster for everyone and for that sport. So once it collapses, it's not easy to come back.
Okay. So you're talking about the structure. Now there is also this friction, if I may call it so, in the structure of the federation, with the founder members and with the others. I mean, what's your take on it? I mean,
very straightforward, very simple, and very direct. That's probably, when you ask me what was my biggest failure in being the president of the federation, I would qualify that the biggest failure or the lack of achievement was being unable to change the draconian constitution that we have in the Federation, which is the articles, which deals with founder members and ordinary members. No disrespect to any founder member club, the 5 founder member clubs, and no disrespect to any other ordinary member or a associate affiliate member or a registered member or a provisionally registered member. The board was in the first term, which I took over, was constituting of 8 councillors,
Yeah.
which we then expanded to a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 10, so
Yes.
that there is more representation. Now, why? Because out of 8 councillors, 5 are permanent members or representative of founder member clubs. The club may change the nominee, but the club remains the same. So that founder member club, as how they have been classified, is the common denominator, is what we call it. People may change, but the club remains the same as the member. So you have 5 permanent clubs who are there, and then only 3 representations from the
Entire country.
entire country of the 47 or 48 clubs that you have. You have only 3 seats, which I thought was thoroughly unfair. And first step, we moved that 8 to 10. So at least 2 more people get a representation. And there is parity, at least you have 5 founder member representatives and you have 5 ordinary member club representatives. Because only if you're an ordinary member status club, you can contest an election.
Yeah.
Some parity was brought in. But we were all led to believe earlier in those days that, that these were the 5 clubs that founded the Federation, 1970 and 1972. On introspection and further, detailing, and I think everything came to light when one member or club, very thorough in their thought process, did an RTI, and the information came from the society, from the register of societies, that this is what was told me by many seniors, but I had to get actual proper documentation of it, which finally came. That there were 5 individuals who formed the Federation
Yes.
in 1970. These 5 individuals were for 5 different states. Upon forming of the Federation, they then invited 5 clubs upon payment of a subscription, which is clearly worded there
Okay.
in the original document submitted to the society. Upon payment of a subscription to become the member clubs of the Federation,
Okay.
and they were classified, the status that they were classified as was called founder member.
Founder member.
So it's a classification.
Right.
It's very different from when 5 clubs got together and drew up the original constitution of the society's deed and registered that with the register of societies. It's very different. They did not do that. It was 5 individuals who then invited these 5 clubs,
Oh.
made them form these clubs, and they're given a classification as founder member status. And this is a fact. Much as one would like to distort it and explain it in ways and means that may suit them or their requirements, this is a fact, right? Now, when you have such a situation, if the founder member representatives in the council do not agree to some change that you want to make in your articles, because you have to evolve, you have to
With the
progress, and our constitution itself has got multiple amendments made over a period of time. Otherwise, the country can't function.
Yeah.
Imagine if everyone said we will not touch this constitution or not pass any bill to amend it. How are you going to deal with your current system? Likewise, the Federation also has to evolve.
Yeah.
Right? 5 people say no, you don't get a 2/3 majority for a special resolution.
True.
For a simple board resolution, you just need simple majority. So it's 5 with a casting vote of the president, I can pass any policy decision to be taken. As long as I have 5 plus 1, 6 votes, I can get it passed. But if I want to change my articles, right, I have to first get my board to agree to it, which means for a special resolution, I need the 2/3 majority, and then put it up to the general body, where again I need a complete 2/3 majority to get a resolution passed.
Okay.
So I need 75% of the general body. And out of 10 councillors, right, I need 7 councillors
Yeah.
to pass this for a special resolution. So when it came to the subject point of this core point, I got many resolutions passed by the council to be in line with the sports code and also the ethics code. A lot of resolutions were passed. That was no problem, right? We got a 2/3 majority, we got the general body to pass it. Constantly, every 2-year term, we did get our articles modified
Yes.
in various aspects. But when it came to this aspect, about a constant argument I have with all my close friends who are in the council, and we laugh and joke about it, but everyone knows from day one I have been talking about the same point consistently. Yes, at one point in time I said, as a matter of respect, I will not sit here as a president and then fight you tooth and nail on it all the time. But this has to change at some point. What has to change? How can you have someone? We talk about free and fair and transparent elections, which is a very, very important aspect of the sports code, which is a very important aspect of any governance when it comes to elections, right? It has to be free and fair and it has to be transparent. 3
Yes.
basic fundamentals, right? What is free here? What is fair here? What is transparent is, okay, you have done so many events as per eligibility norms, and that's it. You sit back and relax, and then everyone else has to come and ask you for a vote. You don't
Yeah.
go and ask anyone for a vote.
Yeah.
How is that free and how is that fair? To the extent am I running some caste culture here? Am I of some different category of person?
Yes.
What gives you the right to say that you will govern the sport for lifelong under the umbrella of the articles, right? And till that article doesn't change, you have a special berth in the sport as a club, and the rest of the clubs are of a lower status? In what way? In what way is another club inferior to you?
Yeah.
So I have no answer. I have no rational, no valid answer to that. The answers I keep getting by some councillors who claim that they have a profanity of wisdom, say that if we lose control, then the sport will die. People will come and get into the council and destroy it and do things for themselves.
Okay.
Is that the way is that the reason? Is that a reason someone is going to give? That the rest of the 45 or 42 clubs are all sharks, and you have 5 founder member clubs who are the godfathers of this federation, who are going to protect the shrine, as you say, and keep the purity. So the rest are all sharks. I mean, how can even someone, I'm not going to give names, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, in matter of conversations, this is what a conversation is. What sort of rationale is that? So I am simply asking, where is the fairness? Where is free and fair? So to me, in my opinion, this has to change. If this does not change, you are going to be constantly and continuously like in a kookaburra's nest.
Yeah.
Because it's only going to be governed finally by the views and how the sport should be structured, then it's a nucleus then.
So do you feel that the new sports code is going to bring about those changes? And if so, what are some of the proposed changes?
When I was dealing with the sports ministry, it's not that the recognition of the FMSA was lost just now. Okay, I think it was now 4 or 5 years back, which was an issue again with the then sports code, where it stemmed from a High Court judgment, where there was a lawyer called Rahul Mehra, who appeared and basically stating that multiple federations were not in line with the sports code. And the main thrust of that was this lack of free and fair and transparent elections, and lack of proper governance modules, and lack of proper positions in the federation, XYZ. So the High Court finally passed an order in his favor, basically directing the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports to state that all federations who are not 100% compliant with the sports code cannot continue to have the recognition till such time they change their articles and come back, and then they can get reinstated. They were not taken and thrown off, over the cliff. They were just kept in abeyance. Say, okay, you don't have. They were first suspended, then they're suspended. Don't translate into you don't have the recognition. Correct yourself, come back, immediately take your recognition. So we recognize you that you are operating in a functional federation, but we can't stamp it and we can't endorse it that you have the recognition from the government, because we have got a court order to state that you need to be completely compliant.
Yeah.
Earlier, before this court order came into being, we were still never compliant with the sports code. The sports code was in existence.
Correct.
Even then.
Correct.
It got modified further. Even then, we were not fully compliant. The only matter, we were not compliant on many matters. But all the matters that were within our control, we amended our articles, which the council was good enough to understand that needs to be done, right? So we got all that done. But what we could not do is to achieve one single point, which is to have representation in at least 75% of states and union territory representation. Because motorsport is a technical sport. You don't have the wherewithal for 75% of the states in the country to have the ability to run motorsport events, right? So it's very specific.
Yeah.
So that's the only waiver after that. After correcting all the other amendments, the only waiver that we were asking for was waiver for non-representation in 75% and having an association in each of the states.
In each of the states, yeah.
The government knew it was difficult. They were also bound by a High Court order. The other way was for us to go and implead ourselves into the court case. And that, again, it's another long period of time.
Yeah.
But in every aspect of any international event that we ran, the government gave us 2000% support. Ministry of Finance, Ministry of External Affairs, Director General Foreign Trade, everyone extended 2000% support to us whenever we ran an international event. So we never felt that issue there as far as the government recognition. That's in terms of support, which I hope is the same now. I'm not sure what's going on. But when it comes to the new sports bill, and I do know that the ministry has written to us also in the past after the correction of various articles where they have specifically mentioned about this free and fair, transparent elections, and specifically talked about, right, if 10 people are going to be on the board, then 10 people have to stand for election. It's very clear. There is a letter to that aspect which has still not been answered satisfactorily. In what I hear right now, based on the amended sports code which has now been passed by the parliament, right, this is a very, very major point.
Okay.
In my reading of the situation, do not see how the government can give any recognition to any federation, leave alone our federation, if the elections, if everyone who is sitting on a board is not coming through an elected process.
Free and fair.
So that's the way I read it.
Okay.
And I do hope that the government plays a big role in explaining to the current governance of the federation that it is important for you to change your structure to be able to, be in line with our sports code, and also, more importantly, to democratize the whole functioning of the federation and not make it monopolistic, which I think will benefit the sport if that happens.
So to conclude, if you could just put it in a nutshell, that was what you couldn't do when you were the president for those 6 years, correct?
Yes.
What are those changes that you brought about which really made a difference to the sport? Anything which kind of stands out?
See, apart from the
Admin of the sport, or
apart from the big ticket events, okay, big ticket events is always a feather in someone's cap that you've been at the helm and the country ran this event during your tenure. Fine, but we didn't go out, we didn't bring the event, we didn't do all that. We managed the event, we made sure that the event ran successfully, we put in a lot of time, we put in a lot of hard work as a volunteer and made sure that those big ticket events ran well. And India got a very good name globally from the conduct of those events. That's one part of it. The other part of it, obviously, which we felt good was that we empowered people, right, for commissions with more expertise and wanting the commissions to do the work and in regulating the sport and to ensure that you then get the right chairman, then the chairman has the right team and people are willing to work and not just there to put the signatory at the bottom saying chairman FMSCI commission.
yeah, on the visiting cards.
Yeah, not on the visiting card, which is what happens everywhere. Everybody likes to dole out these visiting cards. So that I feel was a great step that we took to empower commissions, which really transformed the lot of disciplines into getting more active. The sport improved, the officiating improved. I also think that kickstarting the training program, the volunteers and officials, doing it on an all India basis was another very good thing that we did because very shortly you're going to run out of officials. It's a global situation, it's a global problem. And if you don't deal with this properly, the quality of your events is going to suffer because if you don't have well-trained and well-experienced officials, the result of their decisions is going to create catastrophe in terms of the event. Two, how well you manage your officials is important and how well you broad base and how many more people you keep taking in from the younger generation is very important because the older generation can't keep pace, they can't keep traveling like the way they used to and they need to take a seat back. But we're still going back only to the oldies because there are no youngsters. So how is the sport going to survive?
Yeah, we did do the stewards and the scrutineers, and you're saying continue on that plan.
No, it has to be something that has to be done every year. Every year in terms of upgrading the knowledge and skills of your existing people, because there's more information now coming in from your parent bodies, that is the FIA, the FIM and the CIK. Use all that information to percolate it downstream to your own officials. And the only way you can do that is to constantly do these upgrading training programs and then have your freshers training programs where you induct, and enrollment is a huge subject. You need to keep enrolling new people. If you don't have new stewards, if you don't have new race directors, you don't have new clerks of courses, you don't have race control, you don't have timing system, you don't have marshals, you don't have medical, yes, you can always commercially engage, but all these other people who have expertise to run a successful event, if they are not going to be around, what event can you run? So, while I have been very vociferous on that one single point, as far as the free and fair, transparent elections, it should not be construed that the FMSCI is something that is not right. There's everything right about it. It's been it's lasted, every test possible or everything that was thrown its way.
Yeah.
And it has successfully countered and been the mainstay and been the main governing body.
Yes.
So for 55 years, right, if a federation can sustain, it means there is something good about it, right? So it's not just like a badly run organization. It's a very well run organization, and any organization has its ups and downs and has good administrators and bad administrators and whatever. But when you look at an overall situation, I think the federation has withstood the test of time, has contributed a lot to the development of Indian motorsport, has had very good people governing the sport, brought a lot of experience. A lot of youth have also come in, new ideas are there. So I think this one view of mine should not be construed or played, or a narrative should not be made out of this in terms of my affection and my love for the federation It was the federation who gave me the opportunities to move up as a racing driver. It was the federation who gave me the support in being able to contribute to the sport nationally and then internationally. And I'm pretty sure that this federation is going to go on doing good for the development of Indian motorsport. It's just that if this is dealt with, it can do that much more in a more proactive manner rather than in a very controlled manner. So I'm very open, and I have no hesitation in being vociferous about my viewpoint when it comes to a sensitive matter like this, because this is something which is very important for the good of the sport. It's very important for new opportunities, new people, new ideas, and nothing should be monolithic, and nothing should be in a very controlled environment, which is there is longevity is yes, but there is no permanency in life, right? But in this, with this article, it looks like it's permanent. Yeah. You're born and you die one day. But this is there's only birth, there's no death here. Yeah. So that's why I feel strongly about that. But that should not take away all the good of what I've served the federation as a commission chairman, I've served the federation as a councillor, I've served the federation as a president, and I take great pride in being associated with the federation. And certainly are working as we speak to be a face and to be a voice with the ministry, because I've been around for a long time. I know them quite well, and with people who are currently in the governing body of in the council of the federation. I am in constant touch with the president. So whatever we can do from our side, we are trying to give good advice and pass on the experience that we've had. And I do hope that this will, because I don't see any other way. As far as the sports code is concerned, I do not see any other way. And as far as what is right, I think what is right should be right. And that should be right should be a change in the one point, which is the elections, where every single person should go through an electoral process and not have an automatic entry. And just try to say that if my requirement is to run so many events, and I've run so many events in a year, and therefore I automatically qualify for my club to be representing the federation in the board. So other than that, I think it's a great federation. And thanks to that, leading up to your next question, which you had asked me, you had asked me about my international.
Yeah, your other first, which is becoming the FIA CIK chairman. Your thoughts on that?
Interesting question. So, to start with, I think the fact that I was recognized by the incoming president of the FIA 4 years back, which is Mr. Mohammed bin Sulaim, who won the election, and I had known him for quite some time, only through being a representative of the federation in the Asia Pacific Forum, attending various conferences, attending various Congress meets, and then also being a deputy titular for about 5 or 6 years, and then interacting. I had not known him before that. I got to know him through the sport. And again, being a federation person, and he was the president of EMSO. And then when he won such a big election, and he won it by a huge margin, I was very happy. We supported it because his manifesto was so good that it brought a lot of changes to the whole system. It's not like trying to say that the old system was bad, right? But the really important changes that were required was someone like him who had the vision, who brought it out, and that was very impressive.
Okay.
And one day, I think I was sitting and having a beer at the club. I got a call. Just stepped out to answer the call. It was a balcony with a small ledge, and answered the call, and the senior person called from the FIA and said that the president would like you to get more involved with the FIA. I said, listen, I've been involved with the FIA now for the last 7-8 years. in various capacities. No, we know that, but he would like to get involved in a bigger way. And I said, what do you mean by in a bigger way? My entire horizon was, okay, I'm a deputy director, I'm going there for these conferences, I go there for these meetings. He said, no, he'd like you to be the CIK president. I said, what?
Wow.
And as I said, what? My finger opened up and that glass of beer just went down, crashing. I mean, that was the startle that I got. He said, yes, that's exactly what he wants you to be. I said, listen, I need few days to think about it because it's just come as a big eye opener, and this is why I said, if it wasn't for the federation, then I wouldn't have had this exposure at the international level. So, the first is thanks to the federation that through serving the federation and being exposed at the international level, and when people get to know what you're doing, and obviously people see what your capabilities are, and it was in his wisdom or his decision that I was probably the person who fits the bill. And obviously research would have been done in my experience and knowledge about karting. I said, I need a few days to think about it. I said, fine, sure. I need to consult my family because it's a lot of time that one has to devote to this, and a lot more knowledge that one will have to gain in handling the whole world as against, dealing with your own country.
Yeah.
It's a completely different ballgame because you're dealing with different cultures, you're dealing with different governments, you're dealing with different regulations, you're dealing with different, everything it's the whole world. So, it's very different. He said, fine. I said, how long? They asked me, how long do I need? I said, probably a week, 10 days max. He said, no problem. Take your time, call me back, and then I'll convey the same to the president. So I called my son, obviously. I called Arban, who I interact with a lot on the sport, and I said, listen, this is exactly what happened just now. He said, so what do you say? And I said, no, I need time. I need to talk about it to all of you. And I also need to see whether I can genuinely devote the sort of time that's required in this position. He said, Pa, are you joking? You asked for 1 week's time? I said, yes. So what's wrong with it? He said, you've been given an opportunity like this.
Yeah.
You want to think twice about it?
Yeah.
Just call them right now and say you'll take it on. Because you've dedicated your entire life to karting and to the sport. And when someone wants to give you that recognition and give you this position, which where in the world does a person from this part of the globe get such opportunities? And do you realize that in the history of the CIK and the FIA, you'll be the first person from this part of the continent to hold that position? He said, you worked so hard for it, and if something is now someone is asking you to serve in this position, I don't think you need to discuss it with any of us. So I called the top bosses the next day and said, fine, I'm okay with it. And that's how it started.
That's wonderful. All right, so to conclude, I just have a couple of things that I want to ask. One is, where do you want to see Akbar Ebrahim 3 to 5 years from now?
One, wherever my destiny takes me, that's where I'll be. I'm not the person with these huge, I love to dream. So, as of now, continue to do what I'm doing, enjoy what I'm doing. I like to get into a situation which is try and keep this. Stress is always going to be there, but be in a situation how to deal with it and manage it effectively, which doesn't affect you as a person. And through the course of what work we do and the time that we do spend in an honest manner, wanting to do good to the position that you hold, whatever path life has and the journey that is there, like I said, it will happen. So I don't put something and saying that I would like to be this or I'd like to be here. I will leave it to the pathway and the journey that will unfold itself. And in that manner, it's exciting because you never know what comes to the table tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
And whatever keeps coming, it's a new experience.
absolutely.
And you absorb it and you enjoy it.
Wonderful. And finally, where do you think the sport is heading right now in India, and where do you think it should be heading?
The sport is going in a good direction. To be honest, when you look at it at the overall, there are many things that need to be improved. But by and large, there's a lot of activity, which again is not, the communication is not good enough. People need to know what is going on, which many people don't. So many disciplines are there and so many events are taking place, which still the general public from this country itself are not aware. The awareness is not there still. The interactions with the state governments and the central government has to improve a lot. The interaction with the sporting community, be it the drivers, parents, officials, volunteers, has to continue to grow much, much more faster than where we are today. Otherwise, we will be left behind. The education in every aspect is extremely important. It's as important as defining well set regulations in terms of sporting regulations, technical regulations, code of conduct, discipline, all that is there. That has to keep on evolving. But education, awareness is something that I feel, even in my 6 years, could have done a lot more on this, spent a lot more time. However, yes, we also have limited resources. We are not a bankrupt federation, but nor are we don't have a corpus so big that we can put monies into various avenues to keep it going. So there has to be more financial strength that comes in. We are compared to many federations. I think today, when I left, we had about a 7 crore corpus, which is not bad, but it should be, in my opinion, something like at least people should try to build it to 40 to 50 crores as a corpus, so that you're able to then spend on. It's not about spending on an individual. It's not about spending on a particular championship. That's the promoter to do, right? At the same time, it's not about extracting money out of the promoter and buffering up your coffers. No, it's about give and take. I think we have to start spending more on certain levels of promotion. We have to spend a lot more on education and training, because without that, that's the core, which you don't see.
Yeah.
These are the people who run the events that are not part of the glamour.
Yeah.
Right? But this is the core. Without them, there is no driver, there is no team. So if that collapses, your whole system collapses. So improving the corpus, using that to spend a lot more on training and education, and working more closely with your current promoters to have a two-way relationship as against just a one-way relationship of only taking and not giving.
That's where it should be heading. On that note, thank you so much, Akbar, for being a part of Talk Room. As a token of appreciation for being a part of Turbo Tonic, thank you so much. Here's a memento.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank the team.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.